All right, good evening, everybody. We have about 2 or 3 minutes before we actually start the webinar. We're going to talk about CalTIP tonight, our program that is Californians Turn In Poachers and Polluters. Tonight we'll be joined by one of our department employees who's coordinating the program at this time, and Rick Travis, who is on the CalTIP rewards committee. So I'll be introducing them a little bit later. But please, if you have any questions, use the question answer function at the bottom of your screen. And please, on the chat, don't put any questions there. If you just have a comment, you want to say hello, like somebody said, good evening to you. I think that's maybe Richard. But hey, any comments you have, we will accept them. Any questions you have, we'll accept them, but please put them in the question answer function. All right. We have another couple minutes here. I'm going to wait. This topic that we're going to cover, it probably may not last a full hour tonight. We'll see how much talking Mike Milots does, Lieutenant Milots. He is very verbose, so we'll see how long it goes. But anyways, thanks for joining us. We'll give it 1 more minute, and I'll start it off with a poll. And that poll always tells us kind of where our little audience is. And this sense, we're going to see if any of you have had a reason to use CalTIP. So let me go ahead and start the poll. And I'm going to launch. And hopefully everybody can see it there. And there's all the participants. So here's the 2 questions. Have you ever witnessed an illegal hunting or fishing act in the field? It's going to be yes or no. And second question is, did you report it? Your choices will be yes while it was taking place, yes after the fact, and no. Should have put another option in there if you know, did not see an act. But anyway, we'll close this out in a couple of seconds here. You have your questions. Have you ever witnessed an illegal hunting or fishing act in the field? Yes or no. Did you report it? Yes while it was taking place. Yes after the fact, or no. And I'm going to end the poll. And I'm going to share the results. So almost 50-50. Some of you have seen some illegal act, fishing or hunting. And on the reporting part, we have had some reporters, and unfortunately the ones after the fact outnumbered the ones while it was taking place. Now there may be some circumstances in which why that happened that way, but always remember, if possible, while it's taking place, gives us the best opportunity to respond to it. All right, I'm going to stop that share. I'm going to share my screen really quick. And here we go. So tonight we're going to talk about Californians Turn In Poachers and Polluters and hunter responsibility and rewards. And the reward part isn't really all about the monetary fact of it. It's about the reward of doing what is right. So hopefully you'll all have a chance to experience that and see the results of your involvement and your reasons for reporting it. So tonight, as I said, our presenters are Rick Travis. He's with the CalTIP Reward Committee Chairman. Rick serves as the Director of Development for California Rifle Pistol Association and the California Rifle Pistol Association Foundation. He also serves on multiple CDFW committees in various capacities representing conservation and hunting, and he is also a hunter education instructor. Lieutenant Michael Milots, he started with our department back in 2007. He was first assigned to Pacifica, then Madera, and finally Elk Grove before being promoted to Lieutenant Specialist in charge of the CalTIP program, which he ran from 2013 to 2019. He's been most recently working on department technology projects. So welcome to our speakers. Next, want to talk about why we're talking about CalTIP as a webinar. You might say, what does this have to do with advanced hunter education? Well, in hunter education, we actually want all of our students, when they pass class, to become safe, knowledgeable, responsible, and involved individuals. Now, the responsibility involved, you will have these situations in the field where you have the responsibility to report something, where you need to get involved in it by reporting it. Those are the things that, we teach people to be ethical, to do the right thing. There are some people who are anti reporting. They say snitches get stitches, or I don't want to be a rat. Well, to me, if you fail to report it, you are a rat, because you're cowering in the dark. You're in a dark corner. You're not doing what you should be doing as an individual. So as a hunter out in the field, remember what your responsibilities are. California game wardens really need your help out in the field. You are an extra eyes and ears for us. Mike's going to go over some stats of how many wardens are out there in the field, and you'll be amazed that you don't understand why we're not able to respond exactly when we're called. It's very hard to coordinate all that between all the districts that we have, the distances, the activities that we're doing. Sometimes we're not even in our vehicles. Sometimes we're on foot somewhere, miles away from our vehicles. So immediate response, it's not like a local PD where you call and they're hopefully there within 10 minutes. Even they have problems responding to things in a timely manner. So you are the additional eyes and ears that we need against the thieves who steal our wildlife and their environment from us. So please take this webinar serious. Please get involved, and I am going to pass it on over to Mike.
Thank you, Sean. I appreciate that. Let me see if I can navigate Zoom here. Okay. Okay, can you guys see that there, Sean and Rick?
Perfect.
Okay, great. Yeah, so like Lieutenant Olagi said, my name is Mike Milots. I've been part of the CalTIP program in one way or another since 2013. And it's really an interesting program to have been involved with. There's been a lot of great stories that I've heard, a lot of great cases that wardens have made. And it's really nice to hear the interaction and the devotion from a lot of hunters and fishermen out there as far as what they value their wildlife to be, which in a lot of times is very passionate, that comes across. So thank you for everybody that has reported and may report in the future. So a lot of questions we get is, what is CalTIP? In a lot of other states, CalTIP, which stands for Californians, Terms of Poachers and Polluters, may be known by a different name. In a lot of other states, it's known as Operation Game Thief. So if you go to hunt out of state, you may see that on the back of a license or in a regulation booklet. But it's basically their version of us, and our version being CalTIP, of their Operation Game Thief. So CalTIP started in 1981, is basically a mechanism from members of the public to report wildlife crimes to the department. The Crime Stopper tip line got good traction in the late 70s, early 80s, and other agencies across the country started using it and realizing the value and necessity in a lot of cases from members of the public to be able to report wildlife crime. And back then, of course, people didn't have cell phones. Wardens, in that case, didn't have cell phones. And so it made it much more difficult in order to get a tip to an officer. Unless you see them, you could flag them down. So they came up with a mechanism being CalTIP as a phone number for members of the public to report these crimes. So Sean kind of mentioned that it is designed to operate as a tip line. So this is not designed to operate as an in-progress tip line where we do have the ability to respond as quickly as possible, which we try to do, but sometimes being where we're at, on a dirt road somewhere 5 miles away, 20 miles away from the violation, it may take some time to get there. And we'll talk about that in the next slide as far as some of the geographic restrictions that we have on us. Also, CalTIP, one of the big things is it's not designed to answer regulation questions. Sometimes those do come up if somebody reports something that they think is a violation and it may not be. We do our best to educate the public and just say, we would definitely appreciate your phone call. Although this is not a violation, this is, completely legal, or explain it to them in the sense of, here is the violation, regulation or law that covers that. But if you do have a question, definitely contact our department offices and regional offices, and they'd be glad to help any questions you may have. So why is CalTIP important? These are just some examples of violations that we've discovered through CalTIP, thanks to members of the public that have reported these. And you could have 50 pictures up here, 100 pictures, just the countless times where just some very, very egregious violations have come across and have nothing surprises us sadly anymore. But one of the things with CalTIP that doesn't get talked a lot about is pollution. And pollution, like this last photo here, I think as a single event, pollution probably causes more damage to wildlife and its habitat than anything else. You could have a situation like this on the photo here affect this habitat, the wildlife that depends on it for years to come. So it's definitely important that we rely on you guys in some cases. So here's some data that we have as far as the field level wardens. This data is a couple years old. It's a little bit higher than 300 now, but it just kind of gives you an idea of some of the geographic and distances that we have to deal with. Granted, there may be some more wardens in some more populated areas. So in Los Angeles County, you might have 25 wardens where you might have 10 in Riverside or 2 in Inyo. So it kind of depends. It throws it off each by county, but you can kind of see what we're up against. And that's another reason why we definitely need and rely on a lot of your eyes and ears out there, because we can't be everywhere at once. And you guys definitely allow us to increase our coverage just by having some good, lawful, and ethical hunters and fishermen out there to really help us out. So a lot of times when people call it CalTIP, this is kind of what they're expecting. This is a now retired lieutenant of ours, John Norris. But a lot of times people, and rightly so, when you make that call, a lot of times, you're amped up. You just saw somebody do something illegal. You're reporting it. Your adrenaline's going, and you want a game warden to show up like this. You want them blazing in there, arresting the guy, making a big show, light sirens, you name it. But oftentimes, you might get this. A warden might respond and be in a Code 5 situation like this, where he's going to sit or she's going to sit and watch the violation occur. Now, there's a couple different reasons why. One of the big reasons is that if you're reporting it, we're you're basically using what you have observed as the violation or our mechanism to be there. But if we're able to witness it, now we're the witness to the violation, and we can use that in a report and basically lead you guys out. So another example of that is just this. A lot of times we do things from a distance. We like to observe before we approach or make contact with an individual. I mean, sometimes it's not possible to do that. You just have to go in and make contact immediately. But a lot of times, again, we like to sit back, observe the violation for ourselves before we go in, and then we clearly know what we're dealing with as well, given a lot of the remote areas that we work. So some of the CalTIP stats, again, originally created in 1981. Originally, it was answered by a game warden Monday through Friday, and it was, I believe, 9 to 5. Now, I think in the early 90s, it transitioned to a 24/7 800 number that is answered by a dispatcher. And since 1981, CalTIP has awarded $223,000 to approximately 838 tipsters, and about less than 1%. It's really a fraction of a percentage of people actually request a reward when they are supplying the tip to our department. From 2000 to 2020, calls have increased nearly 70% to over 6,000 calls a year, and we're on pace to beat that again this year. So there's 4 main ways to report to your CalTIP to the department. One is our 800 number. In 2015, we introduced the smartphone application, the text-to-tip, and also ability to report violations through our website. Bear in mind that if you have your local game warden's phone number, definitely call them as well. I like to think that if you do have that, don't rely strictly on that, because sometimes people are out of cell service, they may be on vacation, you might get an answering machine. And while that warden will get that message when they return or get back to their phone, the violation may continue, or maybe to a point where some of the vital information or evidence that we may be able to collect may have expired or may be contaminated by that point. So if you have the ability to call your local warden, definitely do that. But if you can't get a hold of them, follow it up with either the call to our CalTIP hotline or use the app, the text tip, or the website to also follow it up just to be safe. So again, calling the CalTIP line, it's available 24/7. It's a free call. You're not required to give your name or any identifying information. Dispatchers may ask, if a warden would like to get back to you, would you like to leave your name and phone number? You can feel free to do that. You don't have to. Again, there's no requirement to do so. And callers may be eligible to collect a reward if the information you provide results in arrest, citation, or formal complaint. Of all methods, I would say this is probably the best method, given that, again, it's 24/7, and this is our dispatchers. This is the people that we deal with on a daily basis, and this is the people that are going to know who is currently working. If you respond to the other ones, we'll get into how often those are monitored. But if you have your local warden and maybe he's working in a separate area, you might be working a lobster opening down in San Diego, something like that. There's still some process to go through in order to get that information to the closest local officer to the violation. But if you call our dispatch, again, with a CalTIP number, they're going to know who's currently working. And so they may refer it to the local district warden, but there may be somebody who's neighboring that's currently working, and they can get it to them and they can respond much quicker. So again, our dispatchers are post-certified, peace officer standards and training, statewide overarching agency that reviews law enforcement agencies and the dispatchers and make sure that we are properly trained. These are the dispatchers we work with daily, whether it's we're on our radio in our patrol vehicles going in and out of service, running folks for wants or warrants, or doing background vehicle checks. Your information, again, will remain confidential, and you may remain anonymous. Can never get that out without fumbling that. And basically how you do that is you just don't give them your name or your phone number. Simple as that. And again, recommended for in-progress violations. That's probably one of the bigger things of that. Next, we have the CalTIP smartphone application. So this is a free download available either from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. I don't know if it has a special name for it. Some of the nice things with this and the other ones we'll talk about here next, you can add photos, video, or sound recordings. We've had some really interesting video and sound and photos, of course, that come through. And it doesn't always have to be necessarily what you think. We had a spill a couple years ago off the Channel Islands. And it was really interesting because we were getting folks taking video and photos of the spill from different areas. So it was really neat to be able to send to our OSPR staff, our Office of Spill Prevention and Response, who mostly deals with, or more directly deals with oil spills and other deleterious materials in our waterways. But it was interesting to be able to show them, hey, we're getting these tips in, and we can now see how far that material is spreading in a waterway. So even though it wasn't, hey, this is the guy who did it, it was, hey, this is where that material is now. And so it was easier for us to be able to pass it on to our officers and our environmental scientists for them to go out and address that issue and be able to put resources needed or where it was needed more quickly. Nice thing too, is this is discreet. How many people out there are always on their phone, whether it's checking the website, checking your email, sending a text message? So that really applies for this, and also SMS text message ways of reporting violations. It's very common. If you started making a phone call and you're standing right next to the violator and you're saying, okay, the guy's wearing this, he's doing this, there's a chance that they may overhear you. But this is a nice way to be able to report it while you're on site, like how Sean mentioned earlier, and still be discreet about it, where they're not automatically thinking, hey, this guy is turning me in to CalTIP. So the only biggest downside with this and the other ways of reporting is this is only monitored Monday through Friday. This is similar to the old style. We do not have this monitored over the weekend. We do have officers that do monitor this throughout the week, throughout the day, but just not on Saturdays and Sundays. So if you do submit something on Saturday morning, it most likely won't be seen until Monday morning. So again, that 800 number is the best way for in-progress calls. Next is once you download that, your screen will kind of look like this over here on the left, where you have the ability to create an account and you can log into that account, or you can just continue without creating an account. Easy to do. When you click on that, you'll come to this screen here in the center. To submit a tip, you hit this green button right here with your finger. Again, it's letting you know that if this is an in progress or require an immediate response, call the 800 number. Over here is actually what the tip form looks like. Very, very basic. Subject, location, description. What we're going to look for, and we can go into that a little bit later, but just a short subject. It could be guy fishing in enclosed area, hunting in department refuge, whatever you want to put in there. For the location, this is something that we see often a lot. Just make sure to put in the best location you can. If you put in 123 Main Street and that's it, there's a lot of main streets. Remember, we're doing all of California. If this was a small city or a small town, it may be easier. You could say the grocery store, maybe only one in town, we would know that is. But unfortunately, in the state this large, the better the description, the easier it is for us to get there and investigate this violation. This little box right here, a little red circle that says use my location, is kind of a new feature that they recently added, where it'll use the GPS on your smart device and put it in there. So one thing to note about that is if you are going to be reporting this after the fact, don't use that location if you're at your house or down the street at the Denny's or whatever. This is going to use your current location of wherever you're submitting this tip. So if you're on site, definitely use that. But otherwise, you're not on site anymore, go ahead and type out there where the location was. And your best location is you can. I mean, I know it's not going to be exact. You may not know exactly the mile marker, exactly the GPS off the top of your head, but as close as you can get is very helpful. Also, the description. One of the things, again, we're going to talk about some of the things to look for that is very helpful to us is if there's a firearm or a weapon used in the violation, let us know what it is, if known. And then again, any violation information you have in there, be it the method of take, again, the firearm, archery equipment, maybe a net, something like that, the species involved, and how many, if you know. And then again, if you have suspect information, names, nicknames, description of them, etc. Again, we'll get into that a little bit later. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but that's what we're looking for in there.
Hey, Mike, I got a question for you.
Oh, sure.
It came across on our question asking, as far as data coverage, does this app require a lot of like connectivity in order for it to work? How most places might have no signal. And,
good question. Yeah, so you do have to have some kind of signal, be it Wi-Fi or a wireless connection, LTE, I think it's called, for it to work. One thing I did want to add is that although the download is free, that depending on your carrier and your plan, submitting some tips may require some data usage that may be on there. But as far as I've used it or have been in contact with people using this, there's been some pretty remote places where people still can submit. One of the nice things that if you are in a very remote location, you may want to use SMS text, which we'll talk about next. Just being that a lot of smartphones are constantly trying to connect, and if you're in a low cell service and it is unable to connect, just via there's no connection, there's no connectivity. Generally speaking, it's been my experience that as soon as that phone gets into cell service, that it's going to send that text automatically. So that's another option as well if you are in a low cell area.
So that's what this app is do?
No, I was gonna say if you're in a real bad area, I would probably use text or just do it after the fact. I know it's great. People want to submit as best you can and as quickly as they can. But after the fact, in most cases, still is amazing information, and we would love to have it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, great question. So a couple of the things that the smartphone app has is back on the main screen. It has this section right here that says My Tips. The neat thing with the text-to-tip or the app or the web version is that it allows us to have an anonymous two-way conversation. So when you submit that, it goes through the vendor, which is Citizen Observer, and it's going to remove any telephone information, any IP information, anything like that. And so what we end up getting is what you'll see here in the middle, where this is one I sent to myself back in 2020, where this is what it looks like to us. We're going to get something that says, in this case, it's Mike Milot's just a test. And this is what you guys will receive. You will see probably more information back than thank you, test. But that's basically what the conversation will look like. It'll look very much like a text message, and it's pretty fast as well. So if you do submit a tip and we do request more information, or perhaps there's just a question we may have, an officer may respond to you. And in this My Tips area, you will get like a little bubble that pops up that is just letting you know you've got a message in there from us. Go ahead and click that My Tips. It'll list out all the tips you've submitted. Click the one that's applicable. Go ahead and then open it up just like this. in which case you can click down in here, and then it's going to bring up your keyboard and you can answer the question, or you may just get more information. You may have a tip and a week later something else pops up and you go, oh, hey, I overheard this at the local donut shop, and here's new information about this hunting or this poaching that occurred in this area. Also is you've got that little attach button right here, circled in red, and this is where you can add photos, video later. This may be a good situation where maybe you did have bad cell service and you weren't able to get this out right away, but you were able to get some kind of message, or maybe you went back a day later and took photos, maybe some tire tracks, something like that, and then submitted it to us. So this is a way you could go back after the fact as well. Underneath the more section, which is right here, it'll pop up like this. You've got, again, our phone number, our social media accounts, and also some hunting and fishing regulations links. So that'll take you right to our website. Also on our wildlife officer careers and license sales. So I think the next thing we got to add is some advanced hunter ed classes.
Good idea.
Yeah, absolutely. And so this is probably the most confusing thing that we ever put out is on SMS text. Is how does it work? We always say you have to do CalTIP plus your message, and that gets really confusing. It's kind of interesting. Like we'll see it on our end, and it'll always say like CalTIP and then like the plus sign. So, and it's really hard to explain sometimes to make that come out. But this is very much similar to the application, just minus the application. But as far as the communication back and forth, the ability to add photos, video, sound, or other types of recordings are the same. Again, this is very discreet. You can be standing right next to the violator, submitting this tip, and they probably aren't the wiser. Again, it's anonymous unless you choose to put your information in there. And again, this is monitored Monday through Friday. So how it works is if you pull up your text message feature on your cell phone, right up here where it says 847-411, which is tip 411, that is going to be where you put your phone numbers. You normally would text somebody. So you would just type in 847-411. So that text message is now going to go to Citizen Observer. And then down here in the message, you'll type CalTIP and then space, and then whatever your message is. So that CalTIP is going to be kind of an alpha or a numeric, well, not numeric, it's a number, a name identifier where it's going to say, okay, this needs to go to the CalTIP program. Other agencies have different ones, so it may go to Baltimore PD or wherever. In this case, CalTIP is going to identify that this tip is supposed to come to us, and it'll get directed our way. So again, CalTIP, space, whatever your message is, and the same thing applies. Try to put the where, the who, the with what, and what species, how many, and any information you have related to vehicle or the person itself on there. And again, you can add video and photos on this. We get some really interesting ones. So definitely a useful tool. The last method is the CalTIP website, and that can be found up here. If you go to our wildlife.ca.gov website and just go to our enforcement page, CalTIP is one of the first things that pops up. The web page looks like this. And right down here underneath the tip 411 information, where it has the link to download to the Apple Store or Google Play for the smartphone app, it says report a violation online. You can click on that and it'll take you to the online reporting feature. And I'll show you that here in a second. But one of the good things about this is really good for like those long tips that you want to type out. Sometimes typing on a phone, it can be kind of arduous and kind of difficult to do. So this is really good for those violations that somebody's reporting, perhaps is a commercial violation, or perhaps involves like a stream or stream bed alteration, something along those lines, or cannabis, illegal cannabis grow. So this is really nice to be able to get out there, put a lot of detail in there, and that's generally what we get from the web. One thing I'll say is that most people that submit through the web, it makes it a little more difficult for us to communicate back and forth. Once you fill out your information here, of course, you got to have the CAPTCHA and say you're not a robot. And once you hit submit anonymous tip, you're going to get an alphanumeric 6-digit number and letters, I guess. And that's going to be your unique identifier. And so that'll allow you to go back in through the tip 411 or Citizen Observer website and review that tip. So if we submit something to you as a question, you would have to go back into the Citizen Observer website, use your alphanumeric, and bring and find that tip. So most people that submit through here, a lot of times we have some questions on, it's really good information, but there may just be that one thing. And we might need to know, okay, this occurred on 123 Main Street, but what city? What is that better location we're looking for? And I would say 90% of people that submit it through the website, they never look, and we never get that next piece that we're looking for. So if you do use web, which is a great feature, great tool, just be sure to kind of check back every once in a while and see if we've submitted anything as a question.
So I see, Mike, there was, I don't know what's wrong with the volume. There was a little button there. You could download a file, like a picture or a video or something on that last for the internet. Does the same thing exist for text message based tips?
Yeah, so in the text message, generally at the bottom on your text message, and it varies from phone to phone, but there's generally a little button where it looks like a little camera or a little photo gallery. If you click that, that'll open up and then you can attack from there.
Okay.
That's a good question. So one of the questions that we get a lot when we do public talks or interact with the public is, what do I do if I witness a crime? And one of the things that I like to think is that as a person, the better informed I am, the better I can be to help, that agency, be it myself, like CalTIP, I shouldn't say myself, our law enforcement division with CalTIP, or whether it be my local police agency. So just some things to think about when you witness a crime is, first ask yourself, are you in a safe place? If you're not, get to a safe place, absolutely. And that kind of goes with the next one. We do not encourage you to confront the violator. As much as sometimes we want to go and give that person a piece of our mind, let us do that. We're paid to do it, we're trained to do it, and we can do it in a way where you don't get injured or involved more than you already would by reporting that crime. Help the injured if there is an injured person. Make sure to help them, make sure it's safe to do so before you do so, and call for help. Again, if there's an injured person, definitely call 911. If there are no injuries to a person and it's a wildlife crime, definitely call CalTIP, your local warden, and report what you see. Next, don't contaminate the crime scene. As people, we're creatures of curiosity, and we want to go see what happened. But a lot of times when folks do that, they're stepping on tire tracks, they're picking up shell casings that may have fingerprints that we want to see and try to preserve and later use for prosecution. And you name it. There's all sorts of evidence that we can collect from these different crime scenes usually. And anything that you do or another person may do to contaminate it makes it our job that much harder. And lastly, a big thing is write down what you observed, especially if you're in a low cell area where you cannot report this right away. And maybe something you have to wait to get back to camp, and maybe 2 hours later, you might be 2 hours in the middle of nowhere. Write down what you observed, because one of the biggest things we find is that people's memories kind of blur a little bit. You might have seen a man shoot a doe at night, and he might have had a red plaid shirt on. You saw him clear as day. After a period of time, you may not remember it was plaid. You may not even remember it was red. You might think it was orange. Things kind of blur a little bit. So definitely try to write down some of those facts as soon as you can. So again, reporting the violation, we got our 4 methods, and giving the dispatcher or the warden the best detailed account, the who, the what, when, where, and why as you can, including a description of the suspects and their vehicles. Some of the things that we want to know when we're responding to a violation, again, is the who, what, where, and when, and things like, do you know the person's name? What actions did they take? Sometimes there's more than one person. You definitely don't want to get tunnel vision if possible. A lot of times when we see these things occur, our adrenaline goes up and we're just really hyper focused on what just occurred. But there may be some things in the periphery that we don't notice. We don't notice that there was other suspects, perhaps a second vehicle. So definitely kind of take a breath and just kind of soak it all in, so to speak, and try to remember as much as you can. Definitely helps, again, if you write it down. But again, remember the what's the violation? What's the method to take? Wardens definitely want to know, are we going into a fishing contact where somebody might have a fishing pole, which may have a knife? Is this a hunting contact where the person used a high-powered rifle or a shotgun? Is this something where the person realized that they were spotted shooting this duck and they threw their shotgun into a nearby creek? So if you see that, definitely let us know.
Just really quick, hey Mike, we had RP there, just so people know that's the responsible party he's referring to. If you know who it is, please give us that information.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for clarifying. Yeah, thank you. So that goes back to this a little bit. Some of the things you may want to think of. Some of the really nice things to focus on are going to be things that are not likely to change. Somebody could change a haircut. I don't think we've had anybody that I know of go out and poach a deer that immediately give themselves a haircut. but it's definitely helpful. Hair color, not likely to change. If somebody has a goatee or distinct facial hair, do they wear glasses? Do they have visible scars, marks, or tattoos? Those are not likely to change. One of the things we most often get, as you can imagine, is, hey, there's this guy in camouflage. Like, that's useful. That helps pick them out a little bit, but a lot of times, a lot of people are in camouflage or waders. So anything that may be distinct. He's wearing camouflage, but he has a bright orange vest on, or he's wearing a, this colored hat. Definitely helps pick that person out, especially if we're looking at something where there's multiple individuals, perhaps, and we have to determine who that is, hopefully relatively quickly before they destroy any evidence. So if you saw this vehicle going down the road, this thing would probably stick out because this is probably the ugliest truck known to man. But some of the things, again, to think of on this, things like not likely to change. Of course, license plate, CF number, extremely useful. I don't know how many cases have been made strictly on a CF number or a license plate, and we were able to meet the suspect or the offender back at their house, basically caught red-handed with the deer in the back of their truck. So other things, bumper stickers, broken windows, mismatched colored doors, campers, things like that are really going to stick out and make this vehicle just, that is it. We're going to know exactly when we see it. Other thing to know is the last known direction of travel. We've definitely made a lot of cases because the person has said, hey, they're going east on Main Street. And so if we have the ability, we're going to head west on Main Street. And if we have a good description and we see this vehicle, this is what you described, and it's driving at us, we're going to know, hey, we got to stop this guy now. And we can make cases right then and there, which has happened numerous times. So once the investigation begins, you've made your report, you may or may not be contacted again. One of the things that dispatchers will often ask is, do you want a call back? And you completely have that option. Of course, if you do request a call back, you're going to have to give us some number and method to call you back, but you don't have to. So if you aren't contacted, don't think that your report or what you saw, what you reported, just ended up in the round file. Everything that we receive, we take seriously, we follow through as best we can, we run it out, and we try to take what law enforcement action is appropriate for that complaint. So when you do talk to the dispatcher or the warden, if they call you, definitely tell them what you saw and heard. Don't try to say, well, that was my friend, he heard this. Just focus on what you saw and heard. If there is a second witness, that officer may choose to contact them and talk to them separate. Once the officer begins his investigation, again, that may or may not result in a law enforcement action. Sometimes we get some really, really good tips in and we follow them out, and it turns out that maybe there's no violation. Perhaps the deer was taken under a depredation permit, or any number of things that may pop up. And sometimes it just takes additional CalTIPs. We've had reports that have come in that are great, absolutely phenomenal tips, but the person wasn't there when we responded. We weren't able to catch that person in the act. Maybe they didn't get that full license plate. But we've had tips where we get the first part and the second part of a license plate, or we just had one the other day where we were getting the same tip over and over and over again, and it was great. It was a significant violation, and it took that one tip where the guy goes, oh, and this is that person's name, and then everything kind of clicked. So that makes it hugely beneficial the more tips we get, because you may have that one piece of the puzzle we need to solve it. But again, even if nothing comes of it, we don't go out, write a ticket, we don't show up lights and siren, we don't have the warden rappelling out of the helicopter. Just know that all of the tips are taken seriously and we follow through. But one of the biggest things that you guys see by reporting to us and that we can learn from you guys is where the violations are occurring. Sometimes we are so spread thin, we might be working multiple counties and we don't have the time to see the wildlife that you guys do. So the deer might be in this particular part of the county, but we might have something that's taking us over here. And by you seeing constant violations or by reporting to us, we know, hey, I need to be over here, not over here. Sorry, I'm trying to make that look kind of normal. But it's definitely useful for us because we can then use that information to better guide our patrols, better work with our counterparts in another agency or even with our own agency to saturate that area better to catch these guys. So it may not be the person you call that very night on, but it might be his friend, might be a coworker, it might just be something that becomes habitual and that we can address that much more quickly. So here I've got a couple of CalTIP stories that we've had in the not too distant past. This particular one is out of Lassen County. This is the largest raptor poaching case in known California history. This occurred in March 2018 when wildlife officers assigned to Lassen County received an anonymous tip from someone who reported and witnessed a man killing a hawk near Standish. The wildlife officer conducted covert surveillance on the suspect and then visited the property and discovered 9 dead raptors. Local officers responded to the property with a search warrant, and a search of the home and the 80-acre property turned up more than 150 dead raptors and other protected birds. They were able to collect a number of spent rifle cartridges or casings, and included in there were red-tailed hawks, ferruginous hawks, and several dead bobcats and 1 mountain lion. CDF veterinarian and avian specialist examined the carcasses and determined that, they necropsied 159 samples to determine the cause of death, and it generated over a 400-page report that they had on the necropsy results. Richard Parker of 68 of Standish pled guilty to crimes associated with poaching in excess of 150 raptors and other wildlife. He was sentenced to 90 days in jail and given a $75,000 fine and a 5-year probation. Sorry, I can't read. And the terms include search prohibitions and possession of firearms, and he needs to obey all laws. So again, this is a tip, very remote. We would not have found this if this wasn't for somebody who reported this to us. And that's the case in a lot of these CalTIPs. Again, we can't be everywhere at once, but you guys are a force multiplier. You guys help us do our job that much more. So pretty egregious, 150 birds. The next one occurred last year in October. This came from Yuba County. We're a reporting party, saw a group of people cutting up a large number of deer. A wildlife officer responded the following day and investigated and interviewed the suspect. The suspect claimed that the deer were killed under a depredation permit issued by the department. However, things were not adding up, and that just was not the case. The suspect told the officers that he had shot a buck and 3 does under this depredation permit. But again, the story didn't match up. He had way more meat than he's claiming a deer that he shot. And meat was taken to the department's wildlife forensics laboratory for analysis. DNA was done on those items of meat, and the lab was able to determine that the meat had come from 8 separate deer, and 7 of them were does. The wildlife officers also determined that the suspect wasted some of the meat. Basically, he took the best cuts he wanted, and he left the rest in the field. As a result of that CalTIP, again, another one we probably wouldn't have found if it wasn't for a concerned citizen. The investigating officer and the work done by the Wild Forensics Laboratory, Christopher Glenn Parks, agreed to pay a $10,000 fine, forfeit his rifle, and was given a 1-year probation sentence. So if you have any questions, be glad to answer them now, or if it's something that you think of later, or you just want to reach offline, if it's something a little bit more involved, my email address is there, and I do my best to respond as quickly as possible. So please definitely let me know if there's anything we could do better, or if there's a violation you'd like to report. Feel free to report it directly to me or through our CalTIP line. But I just want to thank you guys for your time and your interest in the CalTIP program.
Thank you, Mike. Perfect. Gives people a good orientation of what options they have available. Next, we'd like to address, what happens after the fact. So Rick Travis, as I mentioned earlier, he is on the board for the CalTIP's Reward Committee. And he'll go ahead and give us a little bit of a rundown of how they deal with some of the cases that come in for reward consideration. Rick, you want to go ahead and share your screen, and you have the floor.
Can everybody see that?
Yep, we got it, Rick.
Just need it in show mode.
Yeah, just a second. There we go.
Perfect.
So welcome everybody, and thank you for being on tonight. So I am one of the 2 chairmen for the CalTIP Rewards Committee. So first off, I'll start off with our our purpose statement to help out. And let me move this. Our purpose statement is to help protect and conserve wildlife and natural resources for all Californians. As you're going to see, a lot of the cases that we get come in on a set of forms that we usually have a lieutenant and sometimes a captain with us. All of us are volunteers. None of us work for the department, and we come from many different backgrounds. Some people represent the fishing community or some of the other biological things like flora, and then a lot of us representing the hunting and other conservation groups. And so we come together for the general purpose of making sure this wildlife and these natural resources are there for all Californians, both today and in the future. The rewards committee, this is the easiest way to explain it. If the information is supplied by the caller results in an arrest, the caller becomes eligible for a reward. We've paid up to $1,000 for the rewards. There's a couple of exceptions on that, and that is we as the committee have the ability to go interface. We had a elk case up in Northern California a couple of years ago that I worked with Lieutenant Malotz on, as did the other members of our committee, and we were able to raise a substantial amount of money to try to increase the reward to get the information wardens needed. Unfortunately, I don't think we ever got anything that you guys were able to actually use to date. But that is one of the things that we did, and it was an interesting collection because it was both private people, but there are also groups like, I believe it was California Bowmen, Rocky Mountain Elk, as well as the California Rifle Pistol Association coming together with some private donors to do that and working with the department. So it's an honor and privilege working with this committee and getting these different groups to work together to try to save this wildlife. This is one of the cases that received an award. This were some ducks that were being poached in Humboldt County. And I was kind of smiling earlier when Lieutenant Malotz talked about, because in this particular case, the people did throw their shotguns in some interesting areas. And the wardens would not have found it had it not been for the CalTIP's reporting party that was very detailed in where they saw things happen. The people that did this, committed this crime, had made several stops along the way and tried to hide evidence. And there was enough of a lead that the wardens were able to go out there, find it, and the case came to us and there was a reward given. On the subject of rewards, sometimes the responding party doesn't want a cash reward, so sometimes we have other tchotchkes that we can give out that range from like a hat to a knife to something else, but we're really appreciative. Plus, the other reason we're appreciative is because then we're able to go to different groups to collect money that is donated. Some of that money, like I said before, comes donated from individuals. Some of that money comes donated from local game commissions, rod and gun clubs, various different groups that meet. And that allows us to have more money to try to get in really serious cases that assist the wardens in putting out a more substantial reward to try to get that evidence that we need to make the case happen. There was a deer poaching case that happened up in El Dorado County. And this is another one where there are a couple different people that are CalTIPs, and we were able to give the reward that led to a successful conviction. This was one of my favorite ones. One of the reasons I've loved serving on this committee, I had no idea what a deadly succulent was before I sat on CalTIPs. But these grow on cliff sides throughout Northern California along the coast and some other areas. And we had people, it was an interesting case, both with in the state of California and from a couple places around the world that were actually pulling these succulents off. They're very hard, from what I've been told, to replant. And so it's kind of like once you strip the area, it's stripped. And that's a permanent damage to the wildlife and to all things around, depending on these succulents. And so that was a huge case. If I remember correctly, there were several people that had called in on CalTIPs on that one that led to the successful collection and recovery of some of those plants, as well as a conviction. But it's showing that, you know, along with this case, there's been a couple others where sensitive areas after fires have been replanted and people have went in and tried to cut down that wood for whatever purposes. That really does a lot of damage to trying to help wildlife recover in the area. We've had similar cases where people have tried to destroy for whatever inane reasons water resources and things like that. So all these tips help. This was another one. This happened to be down in Orange County, but we had a person doing illegal commercial fishing without proper permits and licensing. And again, this is people that are stealing from us. They're stealing opportunities for the next generation. They're stealing the ability for fishermen to go, because a lot of times, the legislature, if they see that there's too many things happening in an egregious way and the public starts to get upset because they feel like none of us are doing our job, then we lose some of those privileges that we've all come to enjoy. And so it's important, because you're not just stopping the crime, but you're also preserving the opportunities for the future. So funding for CalTIP. Those of us on the committee work to raise funds, as I said before, through local game commissions. Some of the different counties, their district attorney offices, in the fine process and stuff, will sometimes have some money that goes back to the department. Stakeholder groups, and those on our committee, we have, like I said, groups representing fishermen. We have groups representing hunters, various conservation groups, etc. They all work together to go into their communities. We have private citizens, and so if you or somebody really cares about wildlife, or the right to fish or hunt or hike, or just engage that, they can go to intent lots. They can go to the CalTIP page and put that information that they wish to donate. But just want to let you know, we work about 4 times a year. We come together from across the state to work with the department to make sure that we keep this robust. It's growing and it's becoming more and more effective thanks to people like you. And the more we can get this out through hunter education to people and to the groups that you interact with, the better.
All right. So you can see how important the CalTIP program is to our department, to our tradition, and hopefully you are exhibiting that responsibility, that involvement out there in the field, and you take all the opportunities you can to report violations to our department. We need your help. The officers that are out there, we're not all 24 hours a day. Sometimes there's periods that the officers are not out in the district, or they're on a different assignment. So anything you can do to help us be better stewards of our wildlife and our environment, our habitats for wildlife, please get involved and report it. So until next time, thank you, Lieutenant Milots and Rick. Thank you for your presentations. I think everybody can see the value in what our program is offering. And next time we'll see what we got for you. Don't have anything planned, but if you have anything that you want me to present, please email me. I am available on our Advanced Hunter Education webpage, and there's a survey there. Please fill it out, help us out with different opportunities of class options for you. So we're here to serve. Thank you. Thank you again for attending.
Thanks, everybody.
And good night.
Good
Thanks.
night.